Have you ever walked away from a narcissist, only for them to suddenly come back, sounding sweet, sorry, even reformed like they've finally changed? Don't fall for it. That's not love. That's hoovering, a calculated emotional trap, where the narcissist tries to suck you back into their toxic web. But what really happens when you say no, when you don't respond, don't cry, and don't get pulled back in, that's when the mask slips and their true face emerges. From desperate apologies to explosive rage to subtle smear campaigns, all because you dared to stand your ground and say, "Not this time." In today's video, we're breaking down the psychology of hoovering, revealing the 7 most common reactions narcissists have when they're rejected, and most importantly, how to stand firm and stay free. This isn't just your story, it's the story of millions fighting to reclaim their peace, dignity, and power from emotional manipulation. So if you've ever second-guessed yourself, felt guilty for going no contact, or wondered, am I being too harsh? This video will give you clarity and the courage to keep going. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video on narcissistic abuse recovery, and stick around, because the most eye-opening part is just getting started. 1. Strategy 1. Relentless persistence. They keep hoovering no matter what. If you think rejecting a narcissist once is enough to make them let go, you're severely underestimating their disturbing level of persistence. To a narcissist, rejection isn't the end, it's a challenge. The moment you stop replying to their messages, ignore their apologies, or simply go silent, that's when they switch tactics. At first, they may show up with a sweet, remorseful tone. "I know I was wrong. You're the only one who ever understood me. Please, just talk to me one last time." These apologies may come with promises that sound perfectly reasonable. "I've signed up for therapy. I'm reading books on healing. I've changed." But you need to remember one crucial truth. They're not apologizing because they regret what they did. They're apologizing because they've lost control. This is the first phase of the hoovering tactic, where they weaponize your emotions, shared memories, and empathy to lure you back. Nothing is random. Everything is calculated. Even the apology itself is just a tool, nothing more. And if you still don't respond, they'll escalate. From direct messages, they might begin contacting your friends or family. You might hear things like, "I just want to make sure she's okay." They might even fabricate an emotional crisis to tug at your compassion. This is when you must understand your silence sends them into panic. Not because they love you, but because they can no longer control you. And for a narcissist, losing control equals losing identity. When you hold the line, you're not just saying no to them, you're breaking a toxic addiction cycle you were once trapped in. You're no longer their emotional fuel. You're no longer playing the role in their script of love, hurt, apology, forgiveness. Repeat. Once they realize sweet talk no longer works, they'll start getting more aggressive or desperate. Whether it's dozens of messages, handwritten letters left on your doorstep, or tearful voicemails, none of it is love. It's fear. The fear of losing their familiar prey. Sadly, many people fall back into the hoovering trap because of one vulnerable moment. They think, maybe this time they really mean it. But you can't just listen to what they say, you have to look at their long-term behavior. If they've lied to you, hurt you, crossed your boundaries before their apology is just another mask. Narcissists don't change because you agree to talk to them again. They just change their strategy to reel you back in. And you need to know this. When you say no and stand firm, you are not doing anything wrong. You are protecting your worth. You're saying, "I'm not staying where my peace has to suffer just to keep someone else comfortable." But if you think that once they're clearly rejected, they'll quietly disappear, get ready for the next shock. Because when the begging, apologizing, pleading tactic fails, the narcissist will shift to something even more subtle, acting like nothing happened at all. You block them. They still message you. You stay silent. They casually comment under your photos. To them, truth doesn't matter as much as controlling the narrative. And in their version of the story, you still belong to them, even if you left long ago. Let's expose this tactic of denying reality and why it's far more dangerous than it appears in the next section. 2. Strategy 2. Denying reality, acting like nothing ever happened. After their begging and apologizing fail, some narcissists don't keep pleading. Instead, they resort to something far more insidious. They pretend your rejection never happened, as if nothing ever changed. They won't confront you directly. They won't acknowledge that you blocked them, ended the relationship, or clearly ignored them. They'll just continue behaving like everything is perfectly normal. You block their messages. They send you an email. You go silent. They leave cheerful comments on your social media, maybe even throw in a flirty emoji or a casual compliment. This is a high-level form of gaslighting, not to make you question your memory, but to make the entire world question reality. They're not just manipulating you, they're manipulating the context. To the outside observer, they appear kind, respectful, still friendly with their ex. But you know the truth. It's all a carefully constructed mask to cover up one harsh reality. You said no, and they can't accept it. Why do they do this? Because acknowledging rejection means admitting defeat. And, to a narcissist, defeat doesn't exist in their distorted internal world. If you were once their emotional supply, someone they could control, your refusal becomes a direct threat to their ego. And the only way they know how to survive that threat is to erase it from reality. So they rewrite the narrative to protect their fragile identity. In their version, you're not gone, you're just upset. They'll invite you to group events, mention you in mutual circles, or behave like your relationship never ended. And here's the catch: if you react, if you get angry, call them out, or ask them to stop, they'll use that against you. They'll say, "See, you still care." That's the trap. If you stay silent, they control the story. If you react, they control your emotions. That's why you must stay clear-headed. Recognize that this denial isn't harmless. It's a form of boundary violation through psychological manipulation. You've walked away. You've said no. You have every right to end the connection. But they're trying to override that to keep control. The only effective response to this tactic: no explanation, no rebuttal, no emotional reaction. Just stay grounded in your truth. You know what happened. You know you left. And you don't need their acknowledgement to validate your choice. But when they realize denial won't get them what they want, they move to their most primal weapon, narcissistic rage. Because when silence strips them of control, the mask shatters, and what comes next is fury, intimidation, and emotional warfare. Not because they're hurt, but because they can't hurt you anymore. In the next segment, we'll break down this explosive response and how to disarm it with strength and clarity. 3. Strategy 3. Rage as control. When your silence drives them mad. When denial doesn't work, the narcissist stops pretending. This is when the mask falls off and what's revealed isn't a broken heart, but a screaming ego unraveling without control. Narcissistic rage isn't just an emotional outburst. It's a weapon calculated, theatrical, and meant to manipulate. It exists to scare you, destabilize you, and pull you back into their orbit. You might see it in many forms: a long message packed with accusations calling you ungrateful, cold, or heartless, a late-night phone call with trembling voice, a mix of fury and fake tears, as if you've ruined their life, a vague but pointed social media post about betrayal and fake people, or worse, threats, gossip, smear campaigns, or invoking their connections to intimidate you. And it's all designed for one thing: to provoke a reaction. Because if they can make you angry, defensive, or emotional, they win. The moment you engage, they regain control. What you must understand is this narcissistic rage doesn't come from real pain. It comes from the fury of lost power. You're no longer their puppet, and that destabilizes them. To them, losing control of you is like being erased. And so they retaliate. Some go into self-destructive spirals, drinking, drugs, impulsive behavior to prove they never needed you. Others flip the script, sobbing over the phone, hinting at self-harm or suicide, making you feel responsible for their emotional collapse. These are not cries for help, they're desperate tactics to keep you emotionally chained. So what should you do? First, recognize that none of this is your fault. You are not responsible for calming their rage. You are not obligated to explain further. Give them another chance, or soothe their tantrum. Your silence is not cruelty, it's self-protection. Next, hold your boundaries. If their behavior escalates into real threats, document everything, block all contact, and do not hesitate to seek legal or psychological support. No relationship is worth your safety or peace of mind. Remember, their rage doesn't define you. It only reflects their panic over losing the power to define you. But if rage doesn't work, if even fury fails to pull you back, the narcissist won't stop. They'll simply shapeshift. Now, they become the transformed one. The person who's suddenly aware, in therapy, healing, and ready to truly love you the right way. Or so they want you to believe. Because narcissists never surrender power, they just disguise their next move in the language of change. Let's pull the curtain back on this next tactic, the calculated charm of reverse love bombing, in the next chapter. 4. Strategy 4. Reverse love bombing. When they pretend to change just to regain control. When rage doesn't work. When you still don't react. When your silence holds firm despite threats, guilt trips, or emotional traps. The narcissist doesn't quit. They just switch roles. This time, they're not the wounded victim. They're not the betrayed lover in pain. Now, they return as the new and improved version of themselves, the one who's finally awakened, evolved, and ready to love the right way. They reappear calm, respectful, and emotionally aware. You might hear things like, "I've truly changed. I'm seeing a therapist every week. I realize I've hurt you. I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. If you don't want to get back together, that's okay. I just want you to know I'm healing." It sounds mature. It sounds sincere. But don't be fooled. This isn't healing. It's reverse-engineered hoovering love bombing in disguise. They know you've become strong enough to resist the crying and threats. So now, they play the role of the healed man, the reformed woman, the spiritual seeker. And if you're someone with a compassionate heart, this is the most dangerous trap of all. Because you'll start to think, maybe they really are trying. Everyone deserves a second chance. At least they're in therapy. But zoom out and ask yourself, are they respecting your space or still showing up uninvited? Are they giving you time to heal or trying to fast-track reconnection on their terms? Are they truly changed or just wearing a new costume to get back into your life? Narcissists don't undergo real transformation in a few weeks, especially not when their true motive is to regain power, not to grow as a human being. Some will go so far as to send you photos from therapy sessions. Others will post about their healing journey online, a subtle invitation for you to notice. Look, they're saying, "I'm getting better. You should see this. You should come back." Every action, no matter how healthy it appears, has one goal: to pull you back into emotional territory they can control. Remember, real change doesn't need advertisement. Genuine growth doesn't scream for recognition. A truly remorseful person won't demand your attention, they'll respect your silence. They know that forgiveness isn't theirs to take, it's yours to give, if and when you're ready. But if even their transformation doesn't move you, if you still don't respond, don't reach out, don't return, the narcissist will start to feel threatened at their core. And when they can't control you directly, they shift their focus to something else, controlling how others see you. Next comes the smear campaign, one of their most toxic and calculated strategies. Let's expose how it works in the next segment. 5. Strategy 5. Reputation attacks. When they can't control you, they try to control how others see you. This is the point where all the previous tactics have failed. The apologies didn't work. The rage fell flat. Even the spiritual awakening act couldn't pull you back in. You didn't react. You didn't return. You remained silent. And to a narcissist, that's not just rejection, it's ego death. They can't control you anymore. Then they'll try to control your image in the eyes of everyone else. The smear campaign is one of the most toxic and calculated tools a narcissist has. They craft a new narrative in which you are the cruel one, the cold-hearted, the ungrateful, and them, They're the wounded party, the one who loved too much, the one who did everything they could. Why is this strategy so effective? Because it targets something deeper than just your relationship. It targets your sense of self-worth and your social identity. They don't just want you to hurt quietly, they want you to be misunderstood, isolated, and unsure of yourself. Because if they can make you feel ashamed, attacked, or cast out, you might be tempted to re-engage just to clear the air, explain your side, or redeem your name. And once again, they win, because they've pulled you back into their emotional battlefield. Smear campaigns don't always begin with obvious insults. Sometimes, they're wrapped in subtle suggestions and false concern. I don't want to speak badly of them, but I'm not sure why she changed so much. I just hope they get the help they need. If you ever shared your vulnerabilities, trauma, or insecurities with them, they will twist those very things into weapons. Told them about your anxiety. Now you're mentally unstable, struggled with depression. Now you can't love anyone in a healthy way. Confided in them about your exhaustion as a parent. Now they're telling people she was never really ready to have kids. These aren't lies, they're distorted truths, carefully stripped of context and repackaged to damage your credibility. And how does it make you feel angry, violated, tempted to fight back? But that's the trap, because the moment you start defending yourself, explaining yourself, trying to undo their damage, you're back in the game. You've been pulled out of peace and into their chaos. The only real escape is this: understand that your reputation doesn't live in their mouth. It lives in how you continue to live your life. The people who truly know you won't be swayed by secondhand poison, and those who believe lies without asking you. Maybe we're never really with you in the first place. You don't need to chase every rumor. You don't need to post clarifications or plead your case online. You only need to do one thing live clearly, boldly, and unapologetically aligned with the truth. Because over time, truth separates itself from fiction, and those who spin webs of lies often end up strangled by their own stories. 6. Strategy 6. The replacement. When you're no longer a useful source of supply, when you're not swayed by their tears, when you don't react to their rage, when you don't return after their fake promises of change, and when every tactic has failed, the narcissist will do what they believe is their final, most devastating move. They replace you. But not because they've moved on, not because they've found true love. They replace you because you dared to live without them, and that's something they cannot stand. Narcissists don't fall in love with the new person they use them. They're not starting over, they're staging a performance, and the audience they want watching is you. They want you to see, they need you to witness. Suddenly, they're flaunting affection on social media, holding hands, romantic captions, vacation pics, sentimental gifts, all perfectly curated. They might rush into engagement, move in together, or make declarations they once refused to give you: marriage, children, therapy. Every move is a silent message. Look, I'm happy without you. The new one is better than you. You were the problem, not me. And if you once loved them deeply, if you believed you were special to them, this can feel like a cruel, calculated punch to the gut. But here's the truth. It's all part of the image control machine. The new person isn't cherished. They're being used as a prop to restore the narcissist's wounded ego. This isn't a fresh start. It's a movie set, designed to project the illusion of perfection and desirability. And if you flinch, if you like a photo, respond to a message, or show even the slightest regret, they'll know the performance worked. But here's what they don't expect: that you'll see through it, that you'll recognize the pattern, because the new person. They will eventually become the next X. The cycle will repeat. They'll be loved, then manipulated, then broken, then blamed, discarded, and replaced just like you were. Why? Because to the narcissist, no one is real enough to be truly loved. They only cast people into roles that serve their endless need for admiration, control, and identity. So what should you do? Don't stalk, don't compare, don't care. You once lived inside the lie. You know better than anyone that what they're showcasing isn't love, it's strategy. In truth, replacing you quickly isn't a sign of their recovery, it's proof they're still running, still avoiding responsibility, still terrified of sitting with themselves and doing the real work. And once you see that, you won't feel envy. You won't feel regret. You'll feel one thing only: freedom. But what happens when even replacement doesn't work, when their smear campaign fails, their rage is ignored, and their new relationship doesn't make you flinch? That's when the real breakdown begins. No one left to blame, no role left to play, no reaction from you to keep them afloat. The narcissist enters the one space they fear most, the hollow silence of their own emptiness. Let's unravel that final collapse in the next and most revealing strategy. 7. Strategy 7. Internal collapse. When the narcissist begins to doubt their own power to manipulate. This is where everything begins to fall apart from the inside. Every tool they once used to control you, rage, begging, smearing, replacing, has failed. There's no one left to manipulate. No one left to blame. You're silent. You're free. You're not reacting. And to a narcissist, that's not just rejection, it's a psychological void, a terrifying black hole where their identity used to sit. You might not see this collapse. It doesn't look like their usual rage or their public displays on social media. This is a quiet but brutal disintegration because for the first time, they're forced to confront what they've avoided their entire life themselves. No more emotional supply, no more validation, no more reaction to feed off of. And this is when they begin to question their own ability to manipulate. They start thinking, why didn't it work this time? Why isn't she coming back? What's wrong with me? This is the most dangerous moment for a narcissist, not because they've changed, but because their ego can't survive the truth. Without your reactions, they have no mirror. Without someone to blame, they have nowhere to run. And when every mask falls away, what's left is pure, unbearable emptiness, the very thing they've been trying to outrun for years. Some may lash out one final time, a last message, an uninvited appearance, a final apology. Not because they've truly seen the light, but because they can't stand the silence. What they fear isn't losing you. What they fear is losing control. Because when they can no longer manipulate you, they no longer know who they are. In that state, some narcissists spiral into depression, withdrawal, or a desperate search for someone new to rebuild their identity. But by then, you're no longer part of that cycle. You don't care what they're feeling, doing, or who they're with. Because the most important thing now is you. You did what they never thought you were strong enough to do. You rejected them. You ignored them. You stopped reacting. You ended the performance and walked off the stage with your clarity intact. And that silent exit is what makes them collapse. Not loudly, not publicly, but deeply and completely. When a narcissist tries to hoover you back in and you reject them, you're not just saying no. You're declaring to the world, I deserve respect. I deserve peace. I deserve a life free from manipulation. You are not cruel. You are not heartless. You are someone who saw the truth and chose the strength to never return to that emotional prison. They will rage. They will play roles. They will perform. But every time you stand your ground, you are breaking a cycle of abuse they've likely repeated for years with you and others. You don't beat a narcissist through arguments, revenge, or proving your worth. You win. When you walk away, stay silent and never look back. Because in a narcissist's world, nothing hurts more than seeing you thrive without them. If this video gave you clarity, strength, or even just a moment of validation, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more content on narcissistic abuse recovery and emotional empowerment. You're not alone, and you are on your way back to yourself.